Welcome to episode 7. This is going to be our random topic episode. I hope you guys like and listen. What do you guys want to talk about first?
Well, let's do our proper introductions. We have the great monster drinking, drywall crashing, California exile, Kyle.
In Texas now.
Yeah, God, I wish you weren't in Austin because I'm probably moving. I want to move to Texas when I get out of the Navy. And then
my area is not bad. I'm like 50 minutes or so outside of downtown Austin, so this area is not that bad.
Okay. Now, since I gave you such a great introduction, you owe me one.
I went to high school with this dude, and I didn't really know him in school, but then we started talking on Facebook, and we're friends now, and we talk on Facebook, and now we do a podcast together. This is Cody.
That's all you got? I gave you fucking monster drinking drive. You couldn't have been like, this dude makes kids like a goddamn rabbit, nothing.
That's true. You do breed at an uncommon pace. either your pullout game is weak or your wife trusts you too much. I don't know.
My wife just wanted kids, and I've never played the pullout game.
Wow, so you got lucky and didn't knock anyone up before.
I don't know if you know this about my wife and I. We basically got married when she would have been graduating high school.
Okay, what year was that?
2013.
Okay, that's not bad. 3 years after we graduated.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, Jacob. Well, let's do a combo intro for him. This is the future doctor, man who tastes like wasabi, Jacob.
The Asian persuasion.
The Asian persuasion. Our token minority.
You know, while we're here, do you guys just want to talk about your own political affiliations too? I mean, up to you guys if you want to do that.
Oh, yeah.
I have a political affiliation, particularly. I like the term politically homeless.
Me too.
I mean, I don't want to say I have a political affiliation. I tend to have some right-wing and some left-wing views, but I utterly hate the Democrats because they're collectivists. Always have been.
Right.
And I will say I am anything but Democrat.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say all three of us are more anti-Democrat than anything else. I think would be the most way to categorize all three of us together.
Agreed.
Before Trump and years leading up to that, I always said that illegal immigration and even our actual legal immigration levels were too high, and that we needed to immediately start doing trade wars with China. This was way before Trump. I always believed that, and so when Trump came along, I was like, hey, somebody's finally talking about it.
Right.
Because that's
playing the politically weak Republican who likes to lose slowly.
Yeah, like Romney. Fuck. Oh, God, I hate Romney.
Oh, God.
And McCain. Those two are just, bend over backwards idiots.
Well, you can't do that to McCain because he's in a casket. But
yeah, but I also have a mix of right and left views. I'm very much free market capitalist, but I also think with the free market there needs to come the government should be a referee. I don't agree with monopolies. I don't think any one institution and company should have more than 20% of a market share, which puts me completely at odds with Reagan, the Reaganomics people, because Reagan was the one that made the FEC stop enforcing monopoly laws.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be a little bit left of me, at least the 20%. I think that's a little little weak compared to, I think, what could be done to increase productivity if somebody retains a certain market share. I think that gives them the ability to streamline a little bit better.
I'm just so much more against, like, I guess, like, the tech monopolies have made me be like, you know what, I don't care about any form of production efficiency that might exist because of that. I think the ensuring that there is competition in the free market is more important to keep the free market, because you get these big businesses that become monopolies and force things out. And I think another thing that makes me think that is the, like, ISPs. So there are a lot of areas where competing companies can't even come in and lay fiber. They can't come in and lay infrastructure because the big ISPs have taken them to court, and judges who don't understand the internet have basically said, oh yeah, you need to stop doing that, and, you know, let the customers decide who, you know. And it's like, well, if they don't have infrastructure, this happened in Utah. But it's like, if they don't have infrastructure laid down, then they can't do it. And I think things like that get to the point where you actually prevent innovation and you prevent growth in industry by not having limitations on how big companies can be in that aspect.
Like, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I get where you're going with that. So I lean more towards freedom of innovation. You lean more towards protecting power, and I think both are noble claims. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to look at that. But I think that brings up, like, a different issue that you just pointed out. The fact that our technology companies are just completely outpacing our legal system and how they can potentially even understand what's going on. How the hell?
I definitely agree, but I think the limitations put on that by saying you can't get bigger than this amount unless it's like national security concerns. So like Boeing, because they make our jets and stuff like that. You know, I mean, I guess Boeing kind of comes into one of those things, because who else in America is making passenger airliners?
Is it Airbus?
Maybe. But that becomes one of those things, like, okay, if there is only two competitors, obviously it's going to be 50-50.
Along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, but if, you know, in the case where you have anti-good business practices from a lot of these people, like, I don't see why, you know, the government should let there be these massive monopolies, massive concentrations of power. Like, I think Amazon is too big. I think Walmart is too big. Just at hand, you know. I don't. I mean, and that's where I'm a little bit more. That's why, like, I'm probably the furthest person left here economically, because I'm like, you know, I want the government to stay out of the economy for most cases, but other than I think they should play referee and make sure that companies aren't doing things that are anti-competitive.
So make sure economics plays inside the lines.
Yeah, pretty much. They should be the referee to make sure that, you know, you're not having, like, let's say, you know, back in the day when there used to be 100 different car manufacturers and Ford, GMC, and the other couple big names put the rest of them out of business because they had more money. You know, stuff like that. Or how Google won't will control ads and not let people have easy access to their competitors on their phones, and like with Apple and Android and stuff like that.
Well, let's look at Amazon in particular. They're mentioning how you think they're too powerful. I don't know if they necessarily do anything bad. I don't know if they're accused of particular negative business practices or anything. But
I mean, the fact that Jeff Bezos also owns the Washington Post.
Well, yeah, but that's just
and is trying to buy something
that's not exactly involved in this company.
Yeah, but what ends up happening is they get all covered under the same, like, corporate oligarchy. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
that's one of those things where like
CEO be able to buy a newspaper and control.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I personally go. I think corporate interests need to be separated, and because it's a conflict of interest, right?
Okay.
Same with ad revenue and a lot of this kind of stuff. Like I think like that's the part of the making sure that with the government playing referee by letting them come in and be like, dude, really, that's you can't do that. Stuff like that is why right now we only have 6 major news outlets in America.
Okay, sure.
But I
think that is a little bit separate than Amazon. I think Jeff Bezos's interactions with Washington Post are separate than the business dealings of Amazon. Like if he was using his organization to prop up Amazon and protect them because he had a particular dominance over media, then I would see a particular problem with it. But I think that's kind of outside of what Amazon itself does.
Right, but this is where I think I personally would have a problem with the person who owns Amazon also, with all of the labor rights violations that they are accused of, also owning a major media publication, because then he can go put pressure on the media publication to cover up and lie about whatever he's got going on.
It's kind of a free speech thing, isn't it? Like, you can do whatever you want, you can say whatever you want, you can do whatever you want with your money. So I think if he is doing something particularly illegal with his position, then sure, crack down, break his balls. I don't give a shit.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is where I think we just disagree. I don't think that, and this is where it's like, yeah, he is a person, but I don't consider corporations to be people. I'm actually against, in some ways, I'm against the whole Citizens United decision, because I don't think businesses, that's what created super PACs.
Did Amazon buy WAPO or did Bezos?
I'm pretty sure it was just Bezos.
Yeah, so that's not a corporation. That's just Bezos.
No, I conceded that already.
Slinging his dick around.
Yeah, I mean, I conceded that already.
Yeah.
What I'm not sure is it might be
do all that.
Well, what it might be is that Bezos's company or corporation bought Washington Post. Let me look it up real quick.
I'm sure it'll be like Bezos Inc. or whatever his personal filings are listed.
Yeah, so the Graham family sold the newspaper to Nash Holdings, a holding company established by Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, so that's just legal protection for him to be able to buy it. But that's kind of how you flex your voice if you got the money. I would feel like there's constitutional issues if we tried to silence him from being able to publish a newspaper.
I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, I don't disagree that there are issues with it, but this is where I'm personally going, like, the conflicts of interest, things where you could have anti-competitive practices, are something that maybe that doesn't get quashed, right? But it's something that needs to get, very much heavily having eyes on it to make sure that it's, that stuff like that happens, right? Like, I just don't think, I'm just one of those people that I believe that is one of the fundamental roles of government. Life, liberty, and this, it's like life, liberty, and property, right? Are the old freaking Adam Smith capitalist things saying that the government should be there to protect this, the old John Locke stuff. And I think within the protections of property, if you have companies whose actions or people whose actions are specifically out to deprive you of your property, in some kind of, desivia, I forget what the freaking fancy words are, but in some kind of shitty, non-competitive way, right?
Lucidia.
Yeah, something like that. Like, if they are better than you and they're just better than you, fine, you lose. But if they aren't, if you guys are tied, but then Jeff Bezos owns Washington Post and Washington Post starts shitting all over you and spreading lies and stuff like that, and then other news outlets
that
copy
act
them.
itself should be the crime, not owning a newspaper.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it should be the crime, but I think it should be looked into. Like, okay, you guys are that. Like, that's a form of anti-competitive. Gerrymandering basically of the economy, and like that's the kind of stuff that Google does, right? To gear people towards with their search results towards their preferred stuff, and that's to me I concede like constitutionally and on the freedom aspect of that to you, but I fundamentally don't agree with you being able to own like this massive company and also own this massive media outlet that can shift people's opinions towards you without it being looked into to make sure, for some kind of bullshit.
I think it almost needs to come down to a constitutional amendment where people get to decide for themselves. Because your argument does make sense, but if I have the constitutional argument, then we need to pose that to the states.
Well, yeah, I mean, but this is just like a general political philosophy. I am all about trust busting and breaking down big business, because it's also you got to think like why was Enron back in the early 2000s, late 90s able to completely jack up and cause rolling brownouts because of speculation in California? You know what I mean? You had this one company who was so powerful, and they also had their hands in other media ventures that protected them for such a long time, and then they were literally causing statewide blackouts. So,
why were they doing that?
Because they were energy traders, and they were basically trading energy out of state to bring it back in state to make money without doing anything. So
it wasn't necessarily anything like dark and nefarious. They were just gambling with...
No. What they were doing was highly illegal. And when they got caught, that's why everybody from Enron went to prison for 20 years.
Right. I know I've heard about the Enron scandal, but nobody ever actually properly...
Yeah, they got into effectively energy trading, and from their illegal and unethical trades, they started causing these massive price hikes and blackouts all over California, just off of speculative trading.
That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, because that's also how a lot of the power market works. Is where power plants they'll just literally produce power, and then they sell the rights to the power that they produce to the utilities or the companies or whatever. And in some states it's different, but they will just sell a straight output to a holding company that does with it what they will.
Well, and a lot of times, I only know specifically California, if they overproduce energy for a certain amount of time and the grid can't handle it, they have to actually sell that energy to other states, I think particularly Arizona. They have to sell Arizona
or Nevada, or parts of Nevada and Oregon and stuff like that.
But they pay Arizona to take it. They're not exactly selling it. So
yeah. Well, I mean that's
it's cost.
Yeah. Well, that's because just of how. I mean, that also plays into why renewables doesn't work. But that's a long, kind of a long form discussion that I'd have to get into. And I'm fucking educated in nuclear power, so I
definitely down for that conversation in the future.
Yeah.
That would be a good one.
But it all basically comes down to effective, constant manipulation of the grid. Short form is if you jam a bunch of renewables in, so wind and solar only work during the day, right? Then you force out a bunch of these power plants because they're not going to be able to operate at peak efficiency, and they can't increase power at night, right? In most places, big cities, their power drop doesn't really drop that much at night. So they either have to sell off a bunch of their energy during the day or close down power plants. And it always ends up with the result of closing down power plants. But then you have to have coal plants that will power everything during the night.
Right.
So, you have these renewables that come in, and then this is why it causes hyped up prices, because they will cover most of the stuff during the day. Not most, but they'll cover a big portion during the day, but then that causes power plants to be shut down around it, and it just creates this whole vicious cycle of, having to manage and sell off excess energy that then you have to bring back somehow during the middle of the night, and it forces natural gas and nuclear and coal and stuff out of business, or particularly nuclear is one of the big ones that happen. But it doesn't actually reduce the amount of CO2 that you put in the air especially if you're getting rid of nuclear.
Right. And I've always thought that this whole green revolution thing was largely the oil company agenda, because they know that as long as there are renewable resources being pushed, then those resources are going to have to be backed up by oil and coal. Whereas if we were actually investing in new technology that didn't require the backup reserves of oil and everything, that could just be intermittently used as necessary.
Well, I mean, also, like in America,
they're invested in making sure that their technology carries on by ensuring that we rely on renewables.
Yeah, but so in America, there's solar panel manufacturing is a monopoly. Right, so unless you buy from the one American place, or you buy from China. So now, if you get the federal government to start mandating that we solar panel everything and all this stuff, and they're gonna not be able to get away with buying it from China, they're gonna have to do it here, and they're gonna create infrastructure, which is all gonna help that one company that does it. Now you have a strong vested interest from the one solar panel manufacturing company to fund a lot of this shit to get people to only go for solar. And not allow the literal obvious, the elephant in the room of nuclear power. Because, there's only one company in America that manufactures solar panels right now at any great rate.
Really?
So when the federal government mandated so the federal government mandated that they put solar panels on other buildings, that company's, stock and business went through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dad worked with a company that was trying to do contracting to put in the solar panels, and they just couldn't get their money back from it because of how expensive American solar panels were. And it had to be American, which is good. I mean, doing American is good, but when you're feeding into a monopoly, that goes back to my other thing. Then if there's multiple companies that are doing it, so say you have like a West Coast, a Midwest, and an East Coast, and a Southern company that are all creating solar panels, and they all don't get more than 20% of the nationwide market, then that ends up being better for everybody, because they can compete, they can outprice each other. So
interesting.
I don't necessarily know if the typical forces of free market, I don't necessarily know if that outpaces what a single company, particularly Tesla, can do with solar technology.
Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. Okay, so the technological innovation is one thing, right? But Tesla still gets its panels from China. They still have their factory in China to make that crap. So now, if I'll give you one example of one of the reasons why I don't like this. So this year during the coronavirus, there's two major companies that do meat packaging. One of them has 80% of the market share. They came under heavy corona sanctions because of some infections at their 3 factories. So they control 80% of the meat packaging in America, and they almost had to close during the Rona. Meaning that one company owns 80% of the stuff, and it's highly centralized, and then shipped out and packaged out and all this kind of stuff, unless you have local butchers. Well, if that one company now goes under, where do we get our meat? We almost, that's one of the reasons. Trump literally had to issue an executive order saying, "You guys will stay the fuck open, or people would starve."
Just so you know, guys, I can't hear right now. My headphone died, so I got to reconnect.
Gotcha. What do you think, Jacob?
Economically, or wait. What are you talking about?
What the stuff we were just talking about?
I mean, I'm
I
I don't know
monopolies and
enough
free market.
Look, I'm a free market guy. If you had to give me a choice between, moderate social policies like a Denmark or something like that, or full blown capitalist, whatever, free market laissez-faire, I'm going to choose the laissez-faire. But at the same time, I really don't know anything at all about economics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was it. Keep going. Sorry.
I just don't like any form of restrictions whatsoever. Don't get me wrong, restrictions are necessary. That's why we have laws and the rule of law. But at the same time, I don't know. I just don't know enough about economics. What I do know is that whatever, for instance, Trump did, it worked.
He cut regulation massively.
Yeah, and just little things. And regulation tends to, stop a whole bunch of economic growth. And a lot of things that Obama was not very conducive for the country. Then again,
Obama and the Democrats, they always love, we don't like big business, but we like small business, but then everything that they do winds up helping the big businesses and screwing the small businesses, and it's hilarious.
I don't want to go back to the 19th century by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it'd be nice if the politicians were held to an actual people that were aggressively armed. You know what I'm saying? Actually, hey, if you're gonna do this, then you better do it, or we're gonna get the militia out here and take you out of the governor's office.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying, kind of with the economics, right? Like, I'm maybe not laissez-faire capitalist, but I think that the free market operates best when there's competition. So the government should be able to step in when companies start acting non-competitively, right? When they start working together to control the market, or they start doing these practices which prevent the growth, purposely prevent through non-competitive means the growth of other companies.
I mean, and personally too, I'm a historian, not a historian, obviously. I'm just a fake historian. I just like history. And I'm sorry, you just can't argue it. There's too many instances of socialist reforms that end up coming all around this entire world. And it always starts off with something small, and then it just continues to grow and grow and grow and expedite. Next thing you know, it'll stop because the capitalist movement will come in. Whether American intervention or et cetera, or some dictator will just come in and take over, and there'll be yada yada yada, and then one thing will happen. Either it'll just become a dictatorship, or then a young group of communist revolutionaries will just come up, and we've seen that too many times. If you just have any inkling of history, then you'd be a capitalist without hesitation.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, I think that's why it's key to make sure that the capitalist system continues to function with competition, and you don't get these big like Johnson & Johnson shouldn't own half of the brands that we buy. You know what I mean? That's not free market.
Mm-hmm.
That's that type of wealth hoarding and lack of competition is what creates the situations that lead to the socialist revolutionaries and AOC type people to come in and have a problem.
That is free market. That's a natural occurrence of the free market.
Well, I mean, but that's your late stage collapsing capitalism, right? That's when the market, is technically free from government control, but it's not free from, these massive entities that end up operating like the government, right? I mean,
the train heading towards the cliffs, for sure.
So, that's where I'm like, okay, the role of, if the government wants to if we as the people want to maintain this capitalist system, that's where we go, okay, government, come in and break up these giant companies.
I think there might be a place for government, but I just think that I would allow for less restrictions.
It would have to be limited, and I really think
different position.
Yeah, I just think I want limited regulation. I just want the government to be able to come in and go, yeah, you're too big. Break up and do an East and West version. break up into two brands, you guys can't work together for 20 years. Stuff like that. That way you just ensure the competition in the market. Like Fanta and Pepsi shouldn't have the same owner. You know what I mean? Like Coke and Pepsi don't, but this one super company that claims things are different brands, or it's different companies that own it, but then they're held by one giant, mega conglomeration of companies at the top. Like that's the kind of stuff that I go, that's not free market. That's corruption. That's corruption of the market. Because the free market shouldn't be free. Like even in and this is one of the things that I think that is like John Locke's principle was that competition would always exist, right? And then that's why it would maintain free. Well, and at the time, it was thought that the only thing that could interfere with the free market, interfere with competition, was the government coming in and shutting stuff down. That was before we're, this hyper-connected, hyper-global, even just within the country, this hyper-connected economy where one business can effectively and efficiently do business all over the country, this massive country we have, and then can act in itself in a non-competitive, non-free market manner. And, it's just one of those things like adapting John Locke's thought to modern times, where I think that the ensuring competition means ensuring that super mega companies can't break down and make the market not competitive.
Yeah, I definitely think there should be certain restrictions on companies. I'm just not sure of where that line should be. Maybe it should be whatever the mass population decides, whether it's decided through the House or a direct vote through the people or the Senate. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that stuff is arbitrary, right? People are never going to really be able to decide that. I just think it should be set at a number of market share, because that's the best indication of okay, how much of this do you control? To me, that's the best.
It could be a set number of market shares, but how many people in the country right now think that Amazon is too powerful and should be broken up? Like, how many people actually think there's a problem with how much?
There's a fat portion on either side of the political aisle that would agree to that.
I don't think there'll be more than 10% on either side that thinks that Amazon actually needs to be broken up.
I think you're underestimating that.
Possible. I don't know.
I think Amazon. I think all of the people that have had their small businesses ran out because of Walmart and Amazon and all that kind of stuff. That they would agree that these mega companies are too big, and that they because they come in. And it's just so Walmart, for example. Walmart. This is why small towns will refuse to have a Walmart come in, because they know it'll decimate their mom and pop stores.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's a town that I lived in up in New York when I was stationed up there, that this was a big thing. They didn't want a Walmart to get too close to the town because they knew that it would destroy the local mom and pop store. And that's true. Apply the same concept with these big, massive businesses. Walmart comes in and they're not acting on the same playing field. They're not acting on the same, they're not acting by the same set of rules effectively, because they're so big that they come in and they, run out all of these small businesses. And then all of a sudden you've only got Walmart and Target and nowhere else to shop in your town. And you've got major chain grocery stores, and you've only got major chain these things. So it ends up being oh, look, there's only 6 companies that I'm buying from, and then that condenses all over America, and now you've ran out most small businesses, and then those small businesses get replaced by restaurants, and then that's all we have.
Right, the small businesses get replaced, but then your average voter, most people, the shoppers that are now going to Target and Walmart and finding lower prices for all of their goods.
Yeah, but that becomes the trade-off, right?
Against Walmart and Target when they're getting cheaper groceries.
Yeah, but that becomes the trade-off. Is your extra, let's say 5% cheaper at Walmart worth destroying your town's economy and tax base?
Yeah, I think most people are selfish and are more centered on what they pay for groceries.
Well, I mean,
than the greater scope of the town.
That's also why I personally think that voting enfranchisement is not something that should just be given to everybody, because everybody isn't looking out for what's best for the nation or the town. They're looking at what's best for themselves. And those kind of things, when you get people that start getting bought off by politicians wanting to sell them back their own tax dollars, is why you end up with these socialist revolutionary systems. Like I think we've kind of talked about it before, but the Heinlein Republic thing, where the people that get to vote are people that have proven service. Like I mean, I think even like if you restricted it now to like you only get to vote in federal election if you pay federal taxes, right? And you can sign something on your tax return saying, I'm supposed to get all of my money. Okay, well, if I'm supposed to get $3,000 back, I'll pay $1,000 of taxes in order to make sure that I get to vote.
Right, and we've gone into detail on those things in separate chats. I don't think we need to go into
but yeah, I mean,
on requirements or tax structure.
Yeah. But
go on for hours.
But to me, that's where I go. I don't think that the average person is going to vote. They're going to vote themselves into a self-destructive spiral. And that's why I think just the arbitrary number of until it gets so bad, and then they finally do something, and then it's going to take decades to come out of, right, as these small businesses start to pop up and flourish and all this stuff. But that's why I think like market share it becomes your operating guideline.
Mm-hmm.
Because like what's the market share on national level freaking grocery or outlet store that Walmart has? It's fucking massive. And that's why I say something like 20%, because then that prevents Walmart from being able to get just utterly gigantic. And then that's where I say like there is a trade-off where I think some loss of efficiency is worth it and some loss of reduced prices, because it keeps competition and it keeps the economy competing with each other. Because if Walmart takes over everything and then they stop offering low prices because they don't have a reason to, or there's only Walmart and Target left and they just match each other's prices, well, you're not going to keep getting those low prices in the end.
See, but I think if you continue to raise prices from lack of competition, it just opens the door to competition. It's
you're not wrong, but then if it becomes nobody thinks it's going to be worth it to open up a you're not wrong, but my base premise is that the amount of capital that then it would come in and take to overcome Walmart and get people to stop going to Walmart would eventually just not be enough to actually overcome that hyper lack of that massive control.
Yeah, there's an argument there. Less so for Walmart, but more so for like Amazon. I think the amount of money it takes to compete with Amazon is significantly higher than to compete with Walmart. You can just get business loan to compete in a town with Walmart, and then
But then somebody has to be willing to give you a business loan to compete with Walmart. And if the local bank goes, "No, we're not going to get our money back," you're competing with Walmart, right? Because that's
Walmart has jacked up prices, and you can show that you're going to deliver lower prices than Walmart, then the bank is going to give you the loan.
But it's not guaranteed that you're going to deliver lower prices, right? And it's one of the things where
Walmart has jacked up prices, like
maybe, but then that Walmart could possibly lower prices and then run you out of business and then raise the prices back up, right? And then these banks, also especially local banks, probably have investments in the local Walmart. Like I'm just saying, like that structure.
It'd be an interesting deep dive to figure out if a company could actually fend off small-time competition in that manner.
I mean,
too expensive.
Well, I think they can. I mean, this is why all these businesses get run out when the minimum wage hikes up, because Walmart can afford to do that, but your local businesses can't. McDonald's can afford it.
It's more of an issue with minimum wage than with Walmart.
I know, but it's just the general. But it's kind of the same principle, right? a lot of
Walmart
these
does want the increase in the minimum wage because they can now compete. That is true.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy for them when they get so large to outcompete the smaller competitors that it becomes ridiculous. I mean, anyway, we wanted to talk about electric cars.
Yeah, we did.
Kind of got sidetracked on my hatred of monopolies and the capitalist system.
I'm like a big time Tesla nerd, but I think you might be a little bit more of an expert on the alternative energy because of your background in nuclear. So, do you want to take the lead on what you know and?
Oh, I just wanted to talk about. I love the Cybertruck.
Of course you do. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you were talking about the
Halo come to life.
Oh, bro. Well, so I mean, I think I love that Tesla. This is where one of those things where like Tesla has been kind of funded a lot of part off of government subsidies as they've been getting bigger when they were smaller. Yeah, this is where I go. I absolutely love that when it works, and Tesla's one of those cases where it works. Because now, did you see GMC put out the Hummer EV?
I see that they put out an advertisement for it that was completely CGI.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that. No, I mean they've already sold the first. They've already done the reservations for the first ones.
Yeah. They have the pre-orders. They don't have a vehicle.
No, they have a physical vehicle, and they showed it off.
I haven't seen that. I'm skeptical.
No, I watched a bunch of videos of it. So a bunch of the stuff that they did was CGI because they were trying to like set this like moonscape type of thing with it. But I'm like really fucking excited because one, if I had the money, I would buy the Hummer EV.
Bullshit.
But what's that?
It sucks cock.
No, okay. I mean, have you seen this? 1,000. Actually, the Tesla Tri-Motor one has more towing capacity than that one. So I'm pretty sure it's got like it's better. But I mean, I'm a Tesla fanboy and all up on Elon's nuts. So and also the Cybertruck is bulletproof.
Absolutely.
It's made out of that steel body, so like of course I'm like, yeah, I want the Cybertruck. I don't care if it looks like a freaking El Camino out of an 80s futuristic movie. Like I want
the big selling point is that is the safest thing you can possibly put your family in.
No, so that's an engineering fallacy. Cars with crumple zones are actually much better as far as impact and the whiplash that you get.
Do they have like internal crumple zones in the Cybertruck?
I mean, I'm not sure, but I'm very sure that Tesla, because they have some of the highest safety rated cars on the market, probably has thought of that and has done something. But like the old steel cars, like they would last in an accident, like they wouldn't get as damaged. But you would get more damage. These modern cars with crumple zones, all of that is designed so that if you take a hit, the car will crumple and you will get much less whiplash and much less damage.
Oh yeah, I know that, but I think with the Cybertruck, the actual structural skeleton of the vehicle is the external steel skeleton, and then all of the crumple zones and everything are internal. So when you get in an accident, there is still significant damage to your vehicle, but it is all controlled inside that steel shell.
Well, I think with the Cybertruck, you're much more likely to just run through whatever it is that you're damaging, and you won't actually get much whiplash. The thing has the torque and towing capacity of an MA1 Abrams.
If you're hitting something, it doesn't really matter is harder or softer. It matters who can deliver more kinetic energy on the other one. So
it's a combination, right? Because if you have a shit ton of kinetic energy, but you're in an egg, you're going to stop and you're going to fracture. If you have a shit ton of kinetic energy and you're a rock running into a window, you're going to go through it and it's not going to affect you that much.
But it's like bullets, comparing a hollow point to like a tungsten armor piercing round.
Kind of, yeah.
Whereas if you were putting inside the bullet, it might be better to live inside the tungsten.
In certain aspects, but the general idea is that like if you run into a wall, that you're going to stop, and that's where I go with the Cybertruck with that tough exoskeleton. I think if you run into a wall, you're much more likely to just knock the wall over. You know what I mean?
Well, assuming it's a wall that doesn't go over, like it's a
that's the unstoppable force and movable object conversation.
I think the Cybertruck is still safer. The way it's engineered, I could be wrong. I don't know how to look into it. But I think that the Cybertruck is the safer vehicle for hitting an immovable object.
We'll see. I'm not saying it's not a safe car. I'm sure they've done a lot of stuff with it. But the fact that they've made it out of the same steel that they do with their spaceships, it's bulletproof up to high caliber rifle rounds.
Right. I can penetrate it, but
yeah. But so it's bulletproof against small arms fire. So like, oh no, the Boogaloo breaks down. I can't get gas, but I have a solar panel and my Cybertruck that I can go raid the cities for supplies if I need to.
Right. It's the ultimate like futuristic Boogaloo vehicle, and it's the safest for your family. It's just the best choice you can possibly make.
Well, I mean, I also think in a lot of aspects it could potentially replace a lot of military vehicles in the future.
Oh yeah, with like minor variations for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, like what I see myself doing when I get out of the Navy and I get to go like buy my own car, my house and shit, not car. I want to have solar panels, a power wall, and then electric cars, so that way I can literally just charge them off of the solar panel, right? And be pretty much off grid. That way, if there's any power problems, that I'm good to go, and I'm charging my own cars. And then you're not then gas hit $5 a gallon because we elected another Democrat. Oh well, doesn't bug me. I've got solar panels, and I live in Texas where it's sunny all the damn time. Oh, the only thing I worry about doing that in Texas is the hail. So,
yeah, I haven't seen hail yet. Luckily,
yeah, East Texas has got like a shit ton of hail.
I'm central, so hopefully I'll live.
Yeah, but so I mean, we'll see. That's kind of going to depend on where I'm at. If I have to get like the super safety fucking structures for it, the resistant to Texas-sized hail type of thing.
And Cybertruck is the best thing you can get to prevent hail.
No, I meant for the solar panels in general.
As far as I know, the solar panel, like the Tesla roof, it's more durable than just about any other roofing material.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm like. I want that Tesla roof with the Tesla Powerwall.
But I sound like I'm fucking selling Tesla products here.
Well, I mean that's the problem. I do too, but I'm an absolute I love to make the joke. Elon Musk is my favorite African American.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I
peanut butter. But.
I love their innovation. Like, and this is why I'm like perfectly okay with, billionaires and stuff like this, because we wouldn't have Tesla and we wouldn't have this revolutionary like quasi environment changing, the thing without Tesla. You know what I mean? I'm such
a good person.
Yeah,
compared to the typical superpower of bad people.
Yeah, I've told my wife like my whole goal when I get out is to have a job that makes sure that I can afford to give her a Model X, and have me once I get my current truck paid off to get a Cybertruck.
That's a good goal.
Yeah, and she's also like 100% on board with getting the solar panels and shit like that. Like I'll probably go by like. If I can afford a $350,000 house, I'm probably going to go buy a $160,000 house in the Midwest, or Texas or something, and then slap a bunch of solar, like spend the money to, put solar and Powerwall and all of those kind of things in it.
I mean, it's a good idea. This property is going to increase in value a lot faster than California will. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I'm. There's no way in hell. There's no amount of money that you could pay me to live in California. And
no, you can't raise your kids there.
And I 100% mean it. Like, it's not even like you could pay me enough to send my kids to private school and all that kind of stuff, and live in a nice house here on property, and I still wouldn't do it.
No, not worth it.
You know, I guess I would say that there's some amount of money. If you were going to be like, yo, I'll give you $1 billion to live in California, and I'll be like, no, because I mean, even then, I'd be like, no, because if California secedes, I don't want to be anywhere near it.
Yeah, it's like, how long do you have to stay there to get the $1 billion?
Yeah. Do I just have to own a house here? Because I'll have a house here. We'll come visit the beach on the weekends. Right. But then I'm going back. You know, because I think like we were kind of talking about, if Trump somehow magically wins this election, I think California tries to secede.
That'd be.
I think the West Coast tries to secede, and I think most of the rest of the country will go, okay, yeah, go for it.
I kind of want to see that happen. Let's go, Trump.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
for sure.
I was reading this thing where this guy was basically saying that because of the stark cultural differences and dividing line differences and the lack of social cohesion between, like, say, California and the Deep South, or even California in New York, the New England area, that there's this, possibility or this theory that it would be better for America to, at this point, with how many people live here and all this kind of stuff, to divide itself up into its piecemeal parts. So, like, the Midwest, the West Coast, New England, the, Mid-South, and the South.
Starting to sound like Fallout.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my opinion, there's only 2 states that if they separated themselves from the rest of the country would be able to actually economically depend on themselves. And that is definitely... What's that?
California and New York?
California and Texas.
Yeah, probably Texas.
Because both have large enough food producing lands, both have oil repositories, and both have coastline.
Can I just point out something really, really just... I mean, like 42% of the population voted for Trump in New York?
I saw that.
Jesus Christ, what is happening?
I mean, but let's look at 2016 election. What was it in California? Or what was it in New York? I need to look at this by state.
Well, to be fair, New York was Hillary's state, so it's probably a little bit more leaning towards her.
Sorry.
But he's Trump. He is New York, though. He's New York.
Yeah.
He's New York for some of New York, but not all of New York.
He is what made New York, though. He and Giuliani. Like, people don't realize that. Like, those two are what made New York, New York. What we see now. Yeah. I mean, the previous one, it was 59 to 36.5.
What was its name?
Let me look at the current. Right now, it's 55 to 42. So it's changing, but so even then, 4.5 million to 2.8 million, and then this year, 3.7 to 2.8 million. So, like, all the same people that voted for Trump last in New York. There's like, right now, there's only like 30. There's like a 50,000 increase. Well, I mean, you got to think in New York City alone, 500,000 people fled. I mean, the difference in it looks like 700,000 people. Like, that's probably who fled, and they probably went to Pennsylvania They probably went to Wisconsin and Michigan. Very
You think
similar.
the people that fled were more left leaning?
Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. And during the riots? The look at who the Democrats' voting base really is right now. The wealthy suburbanite.
Huh.
They just off of this, like, Trump didn't gain really any more voters there. He probably just, because even the libertarian vote, there's another 100,000 votes for the libertarians last time. And another 100,000 for Jill Stein. So if you take those, that looks exactly as if there's about 1 million. There's like 1 million less voters in New York this go around, and I guarantee you that's all the people that fled from New York City.
It's interesting for a election with record voter turnout on both sides. A million less in New York. This
Isn't something I think people are talking about.
No, I haven't heard that at all.
But California, they went from 8 million votes for Hillary to 10 million votes for Joe Biden.
Jesus.
How? It's 10 million to 5 million. What the fuck?
Well, that's just voter padding at that point for the Democrats. So,
this is why I don't care about the national popular vote anymore.
Yeah, it almost looks like they just padded it in California for the popular vote, just in case Trump actually won, so they would still have the popular vote argument.
Well, yeah, when you see LA County is 3 million to 1 million, you're like, what the fuck? Even San Diego was like 1 to 5, 1 million to 500,000. Oh my god, dude, fuck.
San Diego was double Biden to Trump.
Yeah.
No.
I was just like, what the? I don't think.
How do you have
voting?
Oh, no, I think there's corruption going on in California with those numbers. There's no way it's double Biden to Trump. No.
Alameda County was 600,000 to 131,000.
What county was that?
Alameda.
Oh, up near San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think there's padding in California for sure. That does not sound right. San Diego 2 to 1.
10 million to 5 million. This is why when I go I really, really don't care about the national popular vote, because California is so heavily biased towards Democrats right now.
I just don't think it's actually that bad.
I don't either.
Like, those numbers do not match up. Like, I know there's a lot of here, but
here's what I honestly think. Even Imperial County went to Joe Biden.
Yeah, okay.
24,000 to 13,000.
Yeah, no.
Riverside went to Joe Biden.
Conservatives.
San Bernardino also went to Joe Biden.
I hate Pelosi. Fuck them.
Ventura, there's not a red county district that went for Joe Biden, or that went for Donald Trump in South, not even Orange County.
Adding 100%.
Well, so here's what I've seen historically that happens is the Democrats creep in, and then they finally get power, and then they do like what they did in Virginia, where they started changing the election laws. And then all of a sudden, their votes and their control starts steadily increasing over time. So, I think it's they come in and they screw up election laws, and then all of a sudden you start seeing these really weird irregularities in voting patterns in elections that's just explained with a wave of a hand saying, oh, voter fraud isn't widespread.
100,000 small cases of voter fraud in every state.
Yeah. It doesn't take much. And and especially when you start making the voting laws super lax. You know what I mean? It becomes super easy to start running up numbers and feign support in these city areas, and then people start sitting out elections and they start not, it's like, oh, whatever. And I think that's what happens all over the fucking place. Like, Philly has had a long history, and so is Chicago, so is Milwaukee, so is all this stuff. It's had a long history of voting irregularities and corruption. It's downright disgusting.
So it disenfranchises people from voting because they know that their vote won't actually count.
And then they don't pay attention, and then it's like, oh yeah, my, wait, I voted? No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't.
Right.
So.
So did your grandma who died 100 years ago.
Yeah. So did Joe Frazier, who's been dead for a decade. Yeah, and then they start, the more control they get, they start preventing like voter roll purges, and then you get more and more of these cases of dead people voting and all this. Yeah, I mean, it's just, this is why I hope like Donald Trump goes down in flames, basically, and burns down that shit with him, so that the Supreme Court sets these guidelines of like, okay, we've got the thing in California, in Nevada. Well, you need to conduct voter roll purges to make sure that illegal people aren't voting and all that kind of stuff. I'm glad California wasn't super stupid on a couple of things. They voted down Prop 16, which was the
thank God.
They voted down the giving 17-year-olds the rights to vote in primaries.
Oh, I didn't even know that was on the ballot. Jesus.
They voted down rent control.
Oh, thank God.
I don't know what the digital privacy thing was, but they voted for it. They voted down bail reform.
Oh wait, the digital privacy thing went through?
Yeah.
Oof. I forgot what it was, but it basically just gave the media companies a lot more leeway while also taxing us.
Nobody. Yeah.
It says privacy, but it's the complete opposite of privacy. Is ultimately
everything with the Democrats is the complete opposite of what they actually say it is.
Oh God. Can't be honest with you guys.
What's up?
I've been doing this series for fucking what seems like forever. Just trying to get my gauge on history. I don't know. I think we're all fucked. I think I'm.
Oh, yeah, no, I think we're fucked.
No, because I've been looking at history, and then I've just been looking at like all it is fighting. All it is just. So I've gone from George Washington. I'm up to Lincoln now, and I've already done all my homework on just about every single president, and it's exhausting. Every single one of them is so exhausting. It's a fight for.
I think we are in fall of Rome territory, and that we are pretty much.
No, I think we're in 1920s territory.
I would probably agree with more with Cody.
Right. I really hope that I'm wrong.
I mean,
well, I'm not saying you're wrong, Kyle. I'm just saying that, like, you have to understand too. There, like, legitimately and genuinely was like an actual communist socialist candidate for president that ran for the better part of 20 years before the Red Scare came in. Like, things in this country are very. Yeah, I forgot what his name was. He was imprisoned.
Jesus.
Shit, you had Huey Long, like the Democrat governor of Louisiana, who was very much like an ardent commie socialist who basically was projected to beat FDR for the nomination in 36 and then ended up dead.
And he could have won. And I'm just saying, like, I hear all this stuff, see all this stuff, and then, just history is so fucking weird, fascinating. So many conspiracy theories and conspiracy. Lincoln actually had a correspondence with Karl Marx. Did
he really?
Yeah, there's a book on it. They had I'm not saying they were friends, but back then they would write letters to each other, and a whole bunch of different people would talk to each other. And Karl Marx, his horrible ideas that he brought onto the world was very popular in a whole bunch of different circles. And he was running a newspaper at the time when Lincoln was president. So for a couple years, they had a correspondence with one another, just debating ideas and politics. And Marx was a Southern sympathizer, fascinatingly.
No, it's absolutely.
Wait, hang on, I take that back. He's not a Southern sympathizer. He's a Northern sympathizer, hating the South for using slavery as a means of like justifying their economic yada yada yada. Even though he himself is an ardent racist, it's really confusing.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Like the system, the economic system of the I'm doing a Civil War class, and like I just the Southern people were so screwed over by their politicians and their elites that it's insane, because like there was actually like mini rebellions inside of the South during the Civil War. But they, for like 40 years, so like the turn of the 1800s, slavery started to decline, right, in the South, because the general concept of it at the point, even in the South, was that it was that it was bad, but it was necessary. And you started to see these like rich politicians after 1807, when they were banned from importing slaves from Africa, start to have laws changed in the South to prevent the freeing of slaves. And then you saw this massive propaganda machine go towards turning the sentiment from the early 1800s until 1860, turning it from this is it's a necessary evil, but it's still an evil, to this is a moral good for society. We are doing these people a service. This is a good system. We're morally righteous.
Are those politicians Democrat or Republican?
These are all Democrats. I mean, the Republicans didn't form until the mid-50s, 1850s. It was the Republicans versus the Whigs. And it was the same thing then, general politics, other than like states' rights, effectively the use of like, basically the only thing that's really kind of swapped, and even then it really hasn't, because Democrats were all about states' rights, but it was just for slavery, not for a lot of other stuff. The Whigs were very much like, they were Lincoln, who was a former Whig, was a Whig before a Republican, gave speeches on picking yourself up by your bootstraps, and why like industry was good and banks were good to move capital around, and all of this kind of stuff. And the Democrats were very like, they were pro-collectivist and using different collective groups as a whole to turn on each other, and they were very good at like collectivizing ideas. They were very anti-business, very pro-worker, very The Republicans have moved more towards like agrarian stuff, where the Democrats before were, because their primary power base was the South. But you still had Northern Democrats, and you had like Mid-South Whigs and a couple of Southern Whigs, but not a lot of them. And so they were just absolutely inundating Southern schools, Southern media, Southern politicians with all of this rhetoric and propaganda to say, to turn on like full ramp up the racism stuff, just hammering it home, right? Mm-hmm. So over the course of 40 years, it went from this is something we should get rid of, it's useful, to it's our way of life, we're doing these people good. And then you had the Civil War, and hundreds of thousands of people died. The South, Mississippi still never recovered economically from the Civil War.
Nope. utterly destroyed by it. I mean, I was looking up some numbers for doing my Lincoln episode, which I'm pretty positive because I got to record the last half of it. It's gonna be like 5.5 hours long. At one point, like bread, just the inflation rate for bread was about 7,000% or something.
Well, that's because the South had to resort to, because their whole economy was export based. They resorted to these weird quasi loans. They created the Confederate dollar, but didn't let it be a legal tender because of the states' rights propaganda got really big, and they just started printing more and more and more money. And they had a couple creative things that they did where they made this economic system where the money was based off of a certain amount of good and service versus straight money. But yeah, Reconstruction was now don't take I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, because the South they lost the Civil War. They were morally bad for slavery, but the Reconstruction was fucking horrible for them. Economically, because it kind of plays into this, like Jacob and I have talked about before. When Lincoln died, it basically led to this domino effect of the radical want to shit on the South Republicans, want to punish them for the Civil War types, to basically establish dictators in the South for the military to govern in districts and take away a lot of their rights for like 20 years. And that's kind of one of the things that led to the lost cause, and why people still, for decades, a century, got taught that the South wasn't about the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights and all this other bullshit, to completely because these people were just, and that's also what formed the original KKK. And not that they were justified, because a lot of they were scared of racial unrest and slaves coming back, because there were more slaves than white people and former slaves than white people in Mississippi at the time. They were very much afraid of retribution, and can you blame them? No, look what they did to all the black people there. I
can understand their fears.
But that's where I go. I think that we had Lincoln dying was horrible for us, because one of the things Lincoln talked about quite a bit was the idea of he wanted to try and send everybody back to Liberia, right? Because he didn't think that the differences and that the attitude of the Southern people of what it would be after losing the war would be able to take it. Oh, guess what? It didn't. You still have Confederate monuments all over the South. But one of his other ideas, and it might have been an idea associated with him, maybe not his idea. I thought it was his idea, but I couldn't. It was hard for me to find something that said this. But one of the ideas was basically to use the Homestead Act that passed and just send, do a trail of tears to get all of the freed slaves on their own plots of land in the Midwest somewhere.
I actually think that might have been Lincoln's idea. I'm not. I forgot.
Yeah, I thought it was his idea. I've in the past said it was his idea, but I got that from listening to a history podcast. I don't have the document or the source that says it was from one of his writings myself. So.
No, I'm 95. I'm not 95. I'm 90% sure that's Lincoln. The whole idea was to basically it was both a mixture of trying to completely more immigrate people to the West and create kind of a weird division where the West Coast would be, or that section of the West Coast would be the black people territory.
Well, I mean, it would also separate them from the structural power that was the South, that you would see until the 1960s. So literally 100 years after the Civil War would be, beating the piss out of them. So, I mean, I personally think that just the getting that group of people, because of the situation, away from that situation, the South, where they, these people viewed them as former slaves and less than human, and were effectively mad at them for the Civil War. Because that, like, a lot of that energy turned to focus on them. That's that whole creation of wealth. If you went, okay, all of like Sacramento Valley is for you guys. You guys get to go in and, start farming and do whatever you want. Or, all of Wyoming is yours. Have at it. Or something along those lines. Then you have that whole, like, you guys get to go out there pretty much free of everybody else and create your own wealth and create your own, farms and homesteads and all this kind of stuff. And one of the reasons I think that didn't happen is the Republicans that absolutely hated the South, the Southerners and all this kind of stuff during Reconstruction that were, like, really gained power the midterms after Lincoln died and kept power for a long time, wanted to punish the South.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought one of the best ways of punishing them was to like, oh, you don't want black people to vote? Guess what? They're all voting. And that's where I don't like the whole, like, segregationist idea of black people should have their own state or anything like that. But I think for the time, scattering the former slave population out amongst, the Western territories to go and, like, be free of people screwing with them, and then eventually everybody just kind of coexists together, would have been a lot better for the time than what ended up happening, which was keeping them under the oppressive boot of racists, basically.
I think I've just been sorry. Just to get back to my original point, though, because we went way into a deep dive of history, but
oh yeah,
I don't know. I think I've just been looking at things. I don't want to say cynically. That's probably not the right way to look at it. I just think we've been lied to a lot. I don't think history is going to remember 2020 very properly, and it's going to be very frustrating. Years down the road is probably how I'm looking at it in my perspective right now.
Yeah, probably. But I think the final resulting, I think we are coming through the weak men make hard times period. And most times what happens historically that I've seen, because there's that whole, the fourth turning theory, right? Mm-hmm. Where every 4 generations you have some kind of bullshit. And we're pretty much like the 2010s and the 2000s were kind of that for us. But you always see, like, a populist come back and try and, like, write stuff for the people and take the wealth out of the hands out of the super elite. Like, that was what Julius Caesar was in a lot of aspects, right? Like, when he came in and was taking power, he was trying to remove power from the elites. And then you still had several more centuries of, like, good Roman leadership. It just is one of those things, and until some, like, outside threat comes in and screws with us, which might be China. But I don't think they're close enough yet to be able to militarily screw with us like the Huns did to the Romans.
With all 300 emperors.
Yeah, but I also, in my personal opinion, yeah, we do see a lot of things that make me believe we're in one of the aspects of that whole thing, but. I think we're about to see, this kind of actually goes to why I think Ted Cruz needs to be the next Republican president, is because if we can break the current cycle of one corrupt political party basically owning racial demographics and that being the dividing line, and people trying to change things along these collectivist BS lines in it, and you can get somebody to come in there and effectively break that up and be like, no, our entire ideology is about, like, making every individual economically feasibly, viable. And you combine that with a little bit of populism to go, look, we're not going to send our jobs to China. We're going to, focus on improving America first. We're not going to have these foreign wars. And then you're going to completely disrupt what right now is causing us to be so bad, effectively.
So it might convince people to become less divided by racial lines and willing to admit that it's about ideological lines.
Yeah, I think Obama was one of the worst things to ever happen to. I think not necessarily because Obama was black, right? But I think because Obama during his presidency, he played into the identity politics a lot.
Right.
Yeah. You know, his first campaign was actually really good. You know, he talked about constitutional issues, executive orders. He talked about wanting to change the system, you know, not drive up the debt, these wars and all this stuff. And then his second campaign was Romney wants to put you back in chains.
Yeah.
You know, at least up until the 2012 election, the liberal media, it was more of like shitting on conservatives over, you know, like they were, you know, talking about their bad, you know, framing their ideas as bad. I mean, that's fair because then it becomes a battle of ideas. But then with Obama, they went hard in the paint on race issues. They, you know, it was kind of like an underlying current, and then they just went straight fucking deep in the paint on the racism, sexism, xenophobia, all of that stupid stuff that, you know, like the list that they always do for that, you know. And that's why I'm saying, like, Obama, like, if he had done what he said he was going to do in his first election campaign, we would be way better off. If he had been more of a unifier, if he had came out and had more, like, during the, like, Ferguson and these other, you know, quote-unquote racialized shootings, like the Zimmerman thing and all that, if he had been more of a unifier and less of a, like, really playing into that to try and, like, secure the black vote for the next guy, I think we'd be better off. And that's the big reason, you know, politically why I think Obama was better. Not, you know, let alone all of the wars, the, you know, politicizing the federal bureaucracy and, you know, the intelligence agency overreach and all of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know, a little bit of a heavy totalitarian there, but I think we need to get back to the, like, to the spot where, like, you can't just call every Republican a racist. And you can't just call, you know, and that, like, that the racial demographics don't just 100% vote for whatever. I mean, because it's super funny. Trump lost this election because, like, while gaining huge strides in the minority vote because of white guilt, basically. 5% loss in white male vote.
Yeah, which I don't really buy. I think
personally, I think that was that's the white supremacist. You know, when you have Richard Spencer,
could be. Yep.
You know, you have Richard Spencer that came. You know, he, like, people were, like, forgot about him after 2016 because he actually started coming out and not liking Trump. You know, he was all, like, pro-Trump and hail Trump. He's going to be a great white nationalist, and then Trump starts doing stuff for historically black colleges and he had programs where he was funneling money into black businesses and all this kind of stuff. And then Richard Spencer came out like, no, this is horrible. I'm supporting Joe Biden. And then nobody talked about it. And then because the worst thing for a black person is to live in a Democrat-ran city.
Yeah.
But, like, that's a fucking inherent truth right there, bro. Like, it really is. So, I mean, you can't say, like, you want to live in the south side of Chicago. You can't say you want to live in Baltimore or Philly. You know, you might be able to say you want to live in New York, but do you want to live in East Los Angeles?
No.
Do you really want to live? I mean, not that, like, many, you know, not that the poor black people could live in San Francisco, but who wants to live in San Francisco where the average house price is like $1 million and there's poop on the streets? Yeah.
No way.
So I genuinely think that 5% swap of you know, white men going to Joe Biden is like a return to, like, you know, it was the white supremacy people going, yeah, let's go back to that.
It could be, or it could be falsely generated votes because I don't see this election as being the one that gets that many votes.
Oh, I will go to my grave fully thinking and believing 100% that at least in the Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, in Michigan, that there was massive voter fraud, and that specifically
the districts where Biden got more votes than Obama.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, that didn't happen, especially with all the videos that have come out, and you have these massive statistical impossibilities. Yeah, it's. I think there are a ton of people all over the world that are like commenting on the internet right now, like, oh, those elections look like fucking Soviet elections right now. There was like I forget which country, but there was like some dude flying a plane over like some big highly televised like soccer game, and it said everybody knows Trump won, and you're like, yeah, like Biden may be loved by the political elites in these other countries, but that's only because Trump told them they needed to pay into NATO.
Right, they don't get free dick anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, gents, any last thoughts? Because it's getting quite late here.
No, I'm pretty good.
Y'all gotta go to work tomorrow?
I gotta be up by 4.
What the fuck are you still awake for?
To talk to you guys.
All right, bro. I don't gotta go to work. It's Veterans Day. Thank a veteran.
It is.
God bless.
Hey, thanks, Cody. God bless.
Oh, you're welcome, dude.
Anyways, thank you guys for listening to this fantastic episode. Hope you guys listen. And if you don't, eat biscuits.
Yeah, warning, don't listen. I'm putting it at the end. We just rambled about nonsense.
Yeah, don't listen. It's horrible.
Politics, history, Civil War, electric cars, Elon Musk having a great dick.
What? All right, good night, guys.